welcome to the Norwegian International Entrepreneur Conference 2025.
Thank you very much for having us here today. It's a real pleasure to represent Ireland and obviously represent Dev Centre House across the world stage. And obviously to Christian, really appreciate all the guidance and advice you have gave us over the past year or two in regards to different things that we should look at. And obviously inviting us here to share that with more entrepreneurs, founders and startups. So with Dev Centre House, I suppose, I am the VP of Global Operations and co-founder. And I suppose being a co-founder is really understanding what our clients need and really understanding business in a whole. How do we take them from that idea to, I suppose, success? And what we've done is we've come up with a recipe, I think, that is truly inspirational and obviously tailored specifically to each client that we work with, looking really in depth as to how we take that initial idea to, I suppose, the development stage, to the go-to-market stage, but not just stopping at that where most software companies would, looking further down the line in regards to, okay, what happens in 12 months, what happens in 24 months, how do we continually help them grow, and how do we continually get them to, I suppose, focus on the revenue side of the business, because if they don't make revenue, chances are they're sunk, and that's the one thing we don't want to happen, especially after spending so long building software. We've obviously been in business for over 12 years, and with 12 years in business comes a lot of ups and downs. And like most startups, founders, entrepreneurs, you have that, I suppose, starting point, you have that downhill, I suppose, trajectory, and then you have that spike, which is what we want to see for every business. And that's until we try to, I suppose, help with from the software perspective, but then looking at the business solution piece as well. I suppose started with 5 developers back in 2012 to 100 plus developers today across the globe. And I suppose the fundamental thing is that we have, I suppose, helped startups scale and grow through different metrics by giving guidance and advice, not just building software, because anybody with a software company can do that, but it's looking beyond that and being able to, I suppose, be completely transparent in your approach. Business is key, it takes years to build a reputation, 5 minutes to kill it. So you want to make sure that you are completely honest, completely transparent, and that you give them the right guidance and right advice to help them scale and grow to where they envision that kind of roadmap to be. And all you do is you give them little trinkets to try and ensure that they achieve it with key milestones and I suppose key development cycles as well. In regards to the business as a whole, we are not just helping founders, we are founders. So we've been there, we understand what people are going through, we understand, I suppose, all those different headaches that come along the journey. And what we've tried to do is try to minimize the impact on all those clients that we work with by taking that burden on personally, and the team also taking that burden on as well, as to how we can actually help them. So they, I suppose, have a different mindset than most developers out there. We I suppose, train them and get them to look beyond the development. So we tell them to pretend they're the CEO of the company, they're the co-founder of the company. What would you do to help this client get from A to B to C to D? And that's the mentality that we step in with. So,
so I want to touch on, like, obviously for everybody in the room, all the things we're saying about, what we have done and what we've done to help companies. But it's important, of course, just to get some understanding. But I think more important for everybody in the room, right? Regardless of what stage you're in, whether you're, a startup founder, or perhaps you're an investor or partner, or maybe you're an enterprise leader. In all these spaces, there's always a thing that what we have done as a company to the founders that are in the organization building a product from scratch. We want to make sure to help with that founder that you don't repeat the same mistakes that other founders have done. And that's easy said than done, because it's very easy when you come build a product, you just go right in and you think you're solving the problem, but when you go to the market, actually you're not really solving that much of a problem that people are willing to pay for. So that's where we're coming in to really help the founder in this state. So that's really important, and we've actually done quite a lot for founders. We give things like accelerated program to give them up to like 60 development hours for free. And what is that? Is basically is just a way for them to get an understanding how quickly can you actually move things, because 60 hours today, it's actually, you can get a lot of stuff done, especially if you've got the right skill sets. For other enterprises like management leadership team, and we've got a bunch of those which we'll actually reference through, we complement them, right? So we've got clients that have 2,000, 3,000, up to 6,000 employees in the organization. And so when we go in and say, okay, here's a team of 4 or 5 people, how can they actually help elevate your current team, right? That's really important because I've spent my fair share in large corporates, right? So, and in corporates, sometimes we can get stagnated with the development, with the day-to-day work. But at the end of the day, it's really important. So companies hire us as a partner to come in to really lift up the skill sets of the team. So I think if you're an enterprise leader, it's really important to have that hybrid approach. I would definitely recommend that. Having a hybrid approach that has a partner involved in that development can really elevate your team, because your team are the most important. We as a company, our number one mission is the people at the company. So if I was to deploy a small team, my number one focus is to make sure the people that are working there, they're going to be acting as if they're CEO of that company, as Anthony mentioned. So then when we do take on any problem, we actually get a success with that problem. What is success, right? Success is generating revenue, maybe. Success is getting users to that app or to that site or to that product really quickly, and so that we don't burn too much cash. And then for startup founders, I think accelerating and taking on lessons that other founders have done can be really valuable, so you don't repeat the same mistakes in the early stages, because there's a lot of ways to solve a problem. And so we will come in with a way that we know that has worked in the past. And if you've done something 1,000 times, you're going to do it more right than you've done it the first or second or third time.
So just going back to that part, so solving problems, and I suppose the key emphasis that we've tried to focus on is not just being your typical service provider, but focusing on these fundamentals: enterprise solutions and business solutions. So that business solution piece is essential to any business growth. So you have obviously low development costs. Everybody would love to reduce the costs. You've reliable tech talent. So you may want to also have your own development in-house. That's completely fine. We are not going to replace your team. We are going to work with your team to, I suppose, ensure that they have the knowledge and skills to do what we do. So we're replicating, rinse and repeat, to give the skills necessary for them to excel and to them to excel your business. So it's a completely different mentality and a different approach to your typical software company. And I suppose what has happened is we've prevented early failures, which is always a huge milestone to achieve and a big statement to stand by. And I suppose the early revenue generating piece is the fundamental to any startup or any business. So if you're not thinking about revenue and you're not thinking about how your business is going to succeed, and you're I suppose, dependent on investor money, chances are that investor money is going to dry up. And if you're not already thinking 5, 10 steps ahead, you're going to struggle, and you're going to struggle really, really difficulty to the point where you may fail. And that's not something that we would like to see for any founder. In regards to locations, if you're planning to strategically spread your wings, we will also help with that as well, based on not only what we've done personally, but what we've helped other clients do as well. So when they want to move into new territories, we obviously look at the market, try to understand exactly what it is that they are trying to achieve, and obviously the niche, and how we can actually adapt it from not only software, but from, I suppose, that beneficial factor of networking and other areas as well. And we're here to try to offer support and guidance, and to try to help as many people as possible to, again, I suppose, get over those boundaries and those hurdles. And then just some of the clients that we've helped over the years. So some of these would be your typical startup. So they've all been in that early stage phase, and we've helped them, I suppose, scale to unicorn status. And then we've also had small businesses, so really starting on a fundamental low and scaling to, I suppose, that large business status. So what we try to do is ensure that we cater for all different sizes. So whether you're an entrepreneur with a small business, medium size or large, we still come up with different solutions as to how you can adapt and you can change approach, and you can actually train your team, which is fundamental to your business and obviously fundamental to how people view you. And then I suppose the brains behind the technology and brains behind the team's kind of approach to technology and thinking is a lot to do with, obviously I have a little input, but not a whole lot when it comes to the tech side. And the reason why we have helped tech companies scale and grow beyond even their vision is Twan, to be quite honest. He has a different way of thinking, and he's trying to think 3 or 4 steps ahead. And what we've done is, we suppose, get to the insight as to the market adoption. So, as you know, entrepreneurs, startups and founders are getting younger, meaning that those legacy systems will need to be updated. And if they're not done within a certain period of time, you may suffer as a business. So that's one area that we look at. The other area is taking that technology and looking at, okay, how do you get X, Y, Z, and how do you, I suppose, adapt to different, I suppose, mechanisms as well.
Thank you, Anthony. I guess maybe a little bit of intro of myself and sort of background. I think it's important for context here. So back to the startup ethos, right? So I used to work in IBM Ireland. I was one of the 27 engineers who built IBM Cloud, which at the time called Bluemix. And 27 engineers, right? All it took to build an IBM Cloud. Today, we build a bank with 5 engineers, right? Banking software. So I think we've come a long way. That's how we can build software today. But definitely, it came with a lot of learning in that space. Over those 5.5 years, I worked obviously in IBM Ireland, where I did also my bachelor and master's in computer science. And fast forward, I worked in IBM US in Austin, and I also worked in IBM Israel, where I'm from. So I think between those years, I've worked with quite a large enterprises. I've worked heavily with AIB, which is a major bank in Ireland. I've worked heavily with American Airlines, Lufthansa, El Al, some big players, and so deploying the cloud solution that me and my team have built into those companies. So what that has came is obviously the learning that you go through as deploying software to enterprises might be a little bit different when you're actually building startups, but that itself was a startup within IBM, right? So then I took this on and I went into the Dev Center House part, which today we build software for clients and products that we also invest in as a company, right? So whenever we come building a product, it's very important that what features you're working on as a founder, right? So it's really critical as a business owner, what are you getting your development team to do, right? So if you're a CEO sitting here and you need to be really sure about what is it that your development team are doing, what are the next 2-3 sprints, what's the next 6 weeks of their work, and how is this in line with the bottom line of the quarterly target that you have. And so you need to direct your highly skilled engineers to generate revenue. And so that's where we are really specializing, right? So we specialize in, of course, not just in the engineering capacity, right? We have now, I'm proud to say, over 150 full-time software developers, all in-house across different regions. And we're very happy to be actually in Norway. I've been here multiple times, sat in many investor sittings, where I am the CTO and I'm helping them showcasing things, right? And they raise money. And that journey, and today we're here actually very proud to establish here. Now we have a bunch of Norwegian clients, and a lot of the Norwegian clients we've had, it's been for the other way, right? They want to relocate to Ireland, and Ireland's a great place. I made a YouTube video about this, why Ireland's a great place to work as a software developer, and also as a technology leader, because there's a lot of support, as she mentioned, Enterprise Ireland, various different things actually available in Ireland for startups. So startups can do really well. But very importantly is to understand that, the having capability when you go outside the current region that you're in, you're widening up, you're thinking through now. And so a lot of Norwegian companies that we've experienced with who came into Ireland, and for that reason they partner with us, because if you do go into ChatGPT or search, you go in like, what are the top software company I work for in Ireland? If I want them to build me a product, we're coming up with the list, right? Now that brings me to a really important point. I think as a CEO today, right, or as a manager, as a tech leader, like number one importance we cannot ignore is what's happening right now in the AI space, and that is the biggest untapped market when it comes to actually revenue growth. So we took our company to where we are today. We have 0 salespeople in the company, not a single salesperson, right? That was my strategy because IBM, we had about 6,000 people on campus, about maybe 300 developers, and over 5,000 salespeople, right? So that's a great company, but it's a lot of salespeople. So you go to the Google campuses, where you've got quite the opposite, right? More software developers, less salespeople. So if you do have a great product, you don't need salespeople. So we are thinking through like, okay, how do we build a company that we don't have salespeople and don't have managers, right? Very important. I don't like managers, sorry for the managers in the room, but having people in place that don't need managers, right, is very important. So how do you do that, right? How do you do that? Now, obviously to solve that problem for a company size of 150 people, I think is a lot easier. If you've got 1,000 employee company, it will be more difficult. You need more processes. But I think it's about hiring the right people, that you focus on making sure that they are fully responsible on the mission at hand. How do I break these 3 months into, number of weeks? And I will break them into sprints, right, within those 2 weeks. Okay, so what are the team are doing in those 2 weeks, right? And if those 2 weeks that they're working on, it's directly in line with the revenue that you want them to achieve, then you're doing a good job as a CEO. And so that has been one of the biggest lessons I could share here, that a lot of CEOs don't emphasize as much focus on that, which is critical. We need to focus. If you're a product leader, you've got to make sure that your developers are like salespeople. Turn every engineer in the company into a salesperson and turn every engineer into a CEO. So now he thinks with a full responsibility. So if you give that ownership to the same developer that builds the product for the client, and he knows that his number one focus is to make sure that they generate revenue, he will build that functionality with a very different mindset. He wouldn't think to go to work and just doing and pushing some code. No, he's thinking about to build a feature that's going to get a user to use that functionality, then pay for that particular feature that we have. So it's really critical to convert your team. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned in IBM at the time I joined there, and there was like, you need to go through 3 weeks or 4 weeks of onboarding, and you need to post at least 2 content in a week on 2 mediums, on LinkedIn or on X or Twitter at the time. And I couldn't understand it at the time, like why? I'm like coming in as an engineer, why do I need to post things on LinkedIn? Then I understood, it's a company has a lot of knowledge, and it's a great company, right? They've got 600,000 people, so they converted every employee in the company into ultimate person that will advocate and does the marketing, as you said. And that was a good lesson that we've learned. The people that you have inside the company, they're the most valuable asset, in my opinion, right? So what is my goal as a leader? My goal is to make sure that everyone in the organization, in the technical division, to elevate their standard, whether they're going to be in the way they work. We introduce different things. We introduce, let's say, gym, right? You gotta go to the gym, you gotta go to outside, go run. So first hour of the day, you do not work, and you get paid membership, but the rule is you gotta make sure you need to train at least 4 times a week, right? Why? Because I know in order for you to work at the level that we need you to work, you need to be really fit. And to be physically fit will also help you to be mentally fit. But I think it's very important to focus on the small team. So who do I focus in, right? I've got 9 versions of myself in the company. So my job is to elevate into them, and their job is to go into they're the squad leaders, they go to the next layer. And so as long as we do that, now I can deploy, a small team. Anthony mentioned there's some things there, we're building stuff for banking applications, we've been building software for some very large enterprises. And I can deploy a very small team that they can become really successful. And so how do you increase revenue, right? What is your current method? Your method is what? Is to run ads? Like, that's not a method we advertise to our clients because that costs a lot of money. So I'm emphasizing on making sure that if you're spending time building a product, very quickly get to the point that you can actually market this product and let your engineering team to think about to become marketers. So, for example, a client comes in, they're like, okay, I want to build a startup product. Okay, traditionally building a product might take us, 8 months, 9 months. Today, I would say I want to do it in 30 days, right? I want to build a product in 30 days that I can have a version out, and then within 60 days is a production state ready. And then I would spend the next 2 months only on selling this product. And I don't hire salespeople. I just use the same people that I have already who build the product because they're the best people. The problem was first to build this product. Okay, great, you did that job, nice work. Now your next problem is I want to get organic users on this page, and I want a daily 100 people on that page, or daily 500, 1,000, you set the metrics. And so go figure that out. Okay, then I also know that all of us are spending a lot of time on ChatGPT, on Gemini, on Claude. It's like everywhere, right? We can't ignore it. And certain different geographic locations uses different language models, both in the software development, also in the data they use. So if we already know the executives are in those locations, I would put focus on that. So I think lessons from us to say, we don't spend money on advertisements. We don't zero on ads. We spend 0 money on sales, right? And that's all organic. And so if you focus on organic, And you don't need to spend any money. I'm not advertising here on like marketing. Of course, marketing is critically important, but train the people that you already have to become the best version. So they are the marketing, they are the product of the company. Number one. Number two, then is the product that we're building is use the energy very quickly on this. So one of the biggest lessons I could share here, a lot of startup founders, a lot of big mistakes that's been made is that they spend so much time on the development part that they wasted so much energy, whether that was a 10 months, 12 months, and they burned so much cash of investors' money or perhaps their own money too. By the time it comes to the product development, to go launch this thing, they've got no more energy left, right? So the goal here is to get there really fast. So if I can get you to start selling the product in 2 months, you have a lot of energy left, right? And you've got some cash flow left. And so this is the focus for us as a company. We want to make sure that if we touch a product, that this product generates revenue. But I think critically lesson here is as a leader, as a founder, is make sure to turn your engineers, your technical team to solve the problem that is sales-driven focus. And doing that, we make sure that we build the right feature.
And you need to have the right roadmap, the right, I suppose, metrics in place to, number one, help the business succeed by putting ABC in place. But number two, helping the team succeed. Because if they succeed, you succeed and your clients succeed. And that's the overall, I suppose. But I suppose the overall from myself and Twana, and the key message today is everybody has different ways of doing business, but you need to look beyond the startup point. You need to look beyond the go-to-market point. You need to be thinking 12, 24 months ahead. And that's what we try to do from the business solution pieces. No longer just providing software as a service. Any software company can do that. So I really thank you for your time.